Join me for the couch and the culture. Now, wait a minute. Make it make sense.
Hey, clients, what do you mean talk therapy feels like backdoor extortion?
I feel like I'm not a man if my girl get a therapist.
Who said that? Baby, go to therapy and do the work.
Parasocial.
The Barbs, the Beehive. I don't know these people personally. They don't know I exist.
Black people struggle with going to finding therapists.
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's like dating.
Let me introduce the couch and the culture, where therapy meets what's trending. Hey, clients. Welcome back to the couch and the culture, where therapy meets what's trending. I'm your host, Kia, and it has been such a long time, y'all. I almost forgot my intro for a second, but I am just so happy to be back connecting with you guys. I hope everyone is seated, driving, multitasking, whatever you're doing, and you're ready to get into some things. So just as a quick reminder, there are a few disclaimers that I will put in my bio if you're watching this on YouTube, but if you're listening on Apple Music or Spotify podcasts, just make sure that you remember when you're watching these videos that these are just my perspectives. I'm not speaking for anybody else. This is not meant to be a substitute for therapy. A lot of what I'm talking about is going to be based on edited content that has been presented to me. So just take all of that with a grain of salt. Now, there were so many things over the course of the few months that I've been away from filming that I wanted to talk about. There will likely be a whole episode dedicated to catching up with some of the things going on in sports. Y'all know that's my heart. There's some other things going on. There's some trauma things that I want to be able to get into in context of some of the real world events that are happening around us. But for today, I definitely wanted to cover things, again, thinking about mental health in the context of watching Love Island. One of the things that, again, I kind of alluded to in the disclaimer, everything that I'm talking about, please understand that I am aware, and I hope that you guys can continue to hold space for the fact that we get an hour and a half max worth of footage that has been edited down from the course of what's been filmed over a 24-hour day with these Islanders. We are not by any means getting the full story, getting full context on things. We are simply being shown the story that the producers want us to see based on how they're editing things together. I am going to consistently come back to that point just because I think sometimes it's easy to forget about that. The other thing I'm going to consistently hold space for is the fact that these people are literally in a bubble. Before they're coming into the villa, they're secluded, without their social media, phones, they're isolated, they're not in contact with their support system. So, before the show even airs, they are in hotels in isolation. Then you take on the fact that this is filmed over the course of 6 weeks after their isolation period, which I believe was said to be like 2 weeks itself. So if I were in a bubble without my support system, away from my regular routine, my bed, the meals I like to eat and enjoy, being able to have a work-life balance, if I am away from all of those things for 2 months, 8 weeks, I too would probably be going through it. In addition to, I'm constantly being prompted about discussing my feelings, my emotions. I'm living with complete strangers over the course of these 6 weeks that the show is filmed. Like, when people are like, why are people so emotional? Why are they having all this? I'll never forget season 6 with Kayla. I felt like everybody was like, she's such a crybaby and all the things, which I'm not saying that can't be true. I'm also saying we have to hold space for the fact that these people are put under circumstances that would make it really easy to get either the best or the worst out of people, at the bare minimum to exacerbate the emotions they may typically experience. So I'm holding space for all of that as I talk about these things. So one of the things that I feel like I had a lot of thoughts about over the last 6 weeks has to deal with how people engaged around Love Island. So I can remember being in college and Twitter being the thing. I loved being able to watch award shows, Scandal, TGIT, and then being able to have that live tweeting happen during the time because it feels like such a community. And for a while, I missed that. I feel like with Love Island and Threads, in some ways, that idea is back. I just think it is on a whole other level though now. And the way I would watch episodes and then go to threads just to kind of see how people were receiving and responding to what we had just witnessed. In so many ways, it was disheartening because I feel like a lot of the times the content we were seeing, it was not nuanced. It was very divisive, very clickbait, very hot take. Either you love this person or you hate this person. There's no ability to kind of see multiple perspectives and hold space for multiple things to be true. That to me, especially as we get into the Anaya and KC of it all, which I'll come back to them in a moment, but I think the division around that particular love story, in so many ways, it was disheartening. I think we've become such a society where we digest things quickly. We have these short attention spans. We want to, be the first to know information, be the first person to share a take. And that's from, the blogs, TMZ, to influencers, to content creators, to your regular everyday human being. But if there was nothing that I took away from this season, even for me internally, it was not making quick assumptions or judgments without having enough information. I think that has been such a lesson for me. Even as stuff was happening, there were so many times that I was tempted to be like, oh, let me pop this camera up and give my thoughts on it. But I was like, you know what, Kia? Wait until you have more information. You don't have to give this rash impression, analysis, assessment. You don't have all of the information yet. And even now, with the season over, I don't have all of the information, but just not being so quick to rush in, I think is such an important lesson. If I start with, I think, some of the most talked about Islanders, I have to, of course, give that to what was happening with Melanie and Anaya. Those are the two Islanders I'm going to focus the most on in this episode. But starting with Melanie, I feel like, number one, when we saw that semicolon tattoo on her arm, I think everybody immediately kind of was ready to be like, oh, okay, she's probably someone who her mental health has probably been tried. There's probably been some things going on. If you know the significance of the semicolon tattoo, or if you don't, I guess I'll quickly educate. So when we think about what a semicolon is used for in grammar, right, it is bringing together two independent sentences where you could put a period, but you choose to put two independent thoughts together, and you don't put a conjunction, no however, no but, no and, none of that. So when we think about what that means in terms of mental health, a lot of times it's used to talk about prevention for unaliving. Y'all know my disclaimers and me choosing not to say that word. But a lot of times people who have maybe had those types of ideations or attempts or history of self-injurious behaviors, a lot of times that semicolon is used kind of, again, as this continuum, right? I had the choice to stop, to end something, and I continue to go, and I may have struggled. Each day I wake up and try again. I think when we first saw her tattoo, I think that kind of gave us a little bit of context for which we were viewing Melanie through once people picked up on that. Coming to the quick judgments thing, when she had her first kind of big reaction, the infamous give me 10, give me 10, her being upset with Sincere after he pulled Kata for a chat, everybody was so quick, oh, she's this season's Huda. This is gonna be just like it was last season with Huda in this toxic relationship and these big reactions. How much information do we have to come to that assessment? I can say, hey, this behavior is a bit concerning. I'm gonna keep an eye out for this behavior. Even still, there was so much that we got to learn about self-regulation and being able to communicate effectively through watching Melanie's story develop over the course of the entire season. So initially you see her getting into it with Beatriz, the whole, give me 10, give me 10, you were sitting up, you were blocking them, we were gonna let Kinsey get first dibs. We had this kind of early like, oh gosh, what's it gonna be like with her? But then you see she's told information, she apologizes, she's open to like resolving the challenging interaction that she had with the girls. And then over time, you start to see this girl really using some effective coping mechanisms. What do I mean by that? Even in the give me 10 of it all, I think there was so much healthy things that we could like isolate in that moment. The fact that when Anaya wanted to talk to her and said, let's go back to the couch, and she set a clear boundary, I'm not going back to that couch. I'm not going back to that couch. Give me 10. I am asking for what I need. In this moment, I realize if I continue this discussion, it is going to escalate. And so rather than get into that, I actually need a timeout to regather my things before I can talk about this. Even when she went and approached Kata and was like, I just need someone to talk to about this, she was making her needs known and expressing what she needed. I think everyone likes to clip it because, oh, it's a funny, it's quotey, it's catchy, give me 10, give me 10. But baby girl actually was using some positive coping skills even in that moment.
The trees are green.
The trees are green. You know what? And the sky is so beautiful today.
So dark.
And it feels great out.
And she's talking to Anaya, and you notice that she's starting to use sensory grounding techniques. And this is a grounding tool that I love to teach my kids that I work with, right? If I am trying to be present right now, I'm trying to not get so overwhelmed, maybe I'm struggling, I'm zoning out, I want to use my senses to ground me, to center me, to bring me back to the present moment, to kind of lower my temperature. So I'm looking for things that I can see, things that I can smell, hear, touch, taste, right? I am doing those things to help bring me down. So I really appreciated that we got to see that. Additionally, we get to see the clip of her praying throughout the season. Right? We hear her multiple times throughout the course of the season talking about prayer. So she is trying to connect to whatever her spiritual beliefs are. If I'm in this like high stress situation, I don't know what more you could ask of me than to try and center myself and bring myself back to a place of calm. The discourse around Anaya, my goodness, it's crazy how protective I feel over this woman that I don't even know, just because the online discourse to me was just so unforgiving. If we start at even her hair, baby, if you put me in that Fiji humidity for 6 weeks, stick a fork in me. I don't know what y'all think my curl pattern would look like. I mean, this ain't even mine, and I imagine it will go crazy in Fiji. But just so much discourse about her hair. And I'm not saying we're not allowed to, critique or give feedback, but the amount of discourse around the Black women's hair, period. Because when Trinity had that leave out, everybody was like, why is she in Fiji with that? Look at her edges already. Why would she do that? Why she ain't got Serena and Alondra and Shelly braids? I mean, immediate, y'all. Have some grace for these girls. Give this a moment to play out, because Trinity was slaying her hair all season long, but we were so quick to make a judgment about it. Even Soul came in and talked about that Pixie. You can have your opinions about it, but to publicly comment and troll people and make it nasty, that's why I just feel like it just went too far. So yeah, Anaya definitely got a lot of that, and I feel like production didn't help kind of showing the back of her wig. A lot of times I feel like we were zooming in on that, but the discourse around her hair alone was exhausting. Then if we move into kind of the way the story's narrated, if we think about like, we're like, oh, she required so much reassurance. She seems so insecure. She won't let KC explore. I feel like if we go to those challenges, every time, I think it was often Zach, he would make a comment about kind of KC, and, they would, have the host like, well, what do you mean by that? And then that becomes the discourse for the evening after the challenge ends, where she's second guessing, well, why would they say this about, what KC's saying about me? So she's like, he's telling me, I'm the blueprint and all these things, but the boys are coming back in these challenges kind of dropping little bones that maybe he's saying something different. And I imagine her intuition was probably telling her, hey, something's not clicking. In addition to the fact that, yes, we know they were coupled up essentially out of circumstance, not based on initial chemistry or attraction. During that door challenge on episode 1, I don't think those two really kissed each other a lot because from what we could see, they did not have a lot of the answers in common. So yes, no one was behind Casey's door, as we heard several times throughout the season, but Anaya went to Sincere's door. Sincere chose Melanie. She too was left without a connection initially. So yes, we have them put together out of circumstance, but they kept not letting us forget she don't even like that man. She didn't choose him to begin with. Okay, we get it. But in the opportunities where she had the option to choose who she wanted to couple up with, when they had the option again, with the challenge, whether they wanted to, whether they were content in their current couple or explore, she chose to be content in that. We later find out from Sean that he had been pulling her from chats, that he was interested in her. But I just think this idea that we were painting her as this, like, she's insecure, she needs all this validation, reassurance. I think there was so much mixed messaging going on, and my girl knew something wasn't right, and that's what she's responding to. Additionally, thinking about the comments that started immediately, of after she chose to stand behind Sincere's door. Oh, she's a colorist. She don't like black men. That her family had to come out and say, I don't know where this narrative is coming from, but my child absolutely does date black men. But why the public was so quick to run with this assumption? It was like you heard one thing, you ran with it, and we had no grace for her at that point. The casa of it all, right? I was so disappointed when they brought those 12 men in and only 6 were invited to stay in the villa with the girls. And immediately online, everyone's like, all those fine black men, and she sent them all home. That's how you know she's a colorist. If my ears were working correctly, I heard them say the girls as a group had to decide on 6 men. Anaya could not have single-handedly brought all those black men into that villa. I don't understand why it was like she had to limit herself to only picking a black man based on the men that came into Casa. Do we have enough information to make these quick judgments? And the judgments about the behavior, not who she is as a person. I can say, hey, this behavior is concerning, or I want to see more about what's going to happen with this choice, versus she's a colorist, she don't like black men, she a bird. Even during the movie night, the amount of like people mocking her for getting in Casey's face after you were just on the floor crying about this man and now you in his face like you big and bad. The George Floyd things that they did with Alindria last season, for them again to do it with her and Casey, it was just so divisive, the way that people were analyzing this young lady that they don't know, that they don't get to see full context of. These are humans. These are people who are going to get their devices back, who are going to have access to this. Their families are watching, trying to defend their character and who they know versus who we are being shown this person is on a reality show. So yeah, it was just really difficult watching the engagement around this 23-year-old black woman online. Then kind of her being responsible for Melanie's choice to continue with Sincere. So many times people were like, it's because Anaya not being real with her that she keeps choosing this man. Melanie had her own choices in all of this. Yes, it's clear that those two were supporting each other heavily throughout the villa, but it's not to say that Anaya was responsible for Melanie's choices. And then even to, I feel like it became a gender war, and oh my gosh, I hate to see the gender wars online. Either you team Anaya or you team KC, or KC and TT versus not. It was so disheartening again to see the way that this was talked about. The cliffhanger on movie night where we have her getting in Casey's face and everybody's like, oh, Carl's gonna have the ick, she embarrassed herself, like, just for the episode to come back on the next night and the show start with her immediately going and apologizing, saying that was not right, she should not have done that, that is not her character, she would not have been okay if that were her. Like, but the 24 hours in between those 2 episodes airing, social media was just, again, like they were on the front lines on the battlefield, either team KC, team Anaya. Sometimes we just need to sit on our hands and not say something. We can have our thoughts, but every thought that we have doesn't need to be shared aloud. If I could drop kind of a nugget here, going back to the basic principles of, is what I'm about to say, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it don't check those three boxes, I may not need to say it aloud. I may not need to tweet it, to thread it, whatever you want to say. I can have all of these thoughts swirling around, and trust me, y'all, I be having a bunch. Sometimes they get said aloud to the people I'm closest to, but I can't imagine then going online, getting in people's comments, tagging people's mothers. I mean, the amount of times I've seen Anaya's mom tag, just, is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it true? And if it don't meet those three requirements, maybe I just keep it to myself, right? If I were working with Melanie and Anaya after they get their phones back and return home to the real world, the things that I would want to work with them on: number one, being able to balance this new transition of life, right? Where you go from your small circle to having millions and millions of eyes on you, working on what that means. What are my goals at this point moving forward? The interviews that I do, the collaborations that I do, what I want to share or not share about my relationship moving forward. How am I going to prioritize those things? How am I going to set boundaries around it? I don't necessarily need to engage with everything that's presented to me. I don't have to accept every interview. I don't have to respond to every troll, but working on, okay, what is it that's important to me that I want to prioritize? What are my big picture goals, and what are the things that I'm doing along the way to help me get there? So I would definitely be working with them on that. Additionally, kind of thinking about this identity, right? What is it that I want my brand to be? But aside from that brand, when it is just me alone with my thoughts and nobody else around, what is it that is important to me? What are the values that I want to be clear about demonstrating? Who is it that I want to be? Is it that I want to see myself as, someone who's empathetic, as a sister, a daughter, whatever? What is it about my identity that I really want to solidify and be confident in? Because I do think they're going to be at this place of trying to figure out, what is this identity? And I think we've seen with previous Islanders, when you get out of the villa, everybody wants to go to LA. You get so many people flooding you. And it's like, if you don't have a strong sense of self, I can imagine how easy it would be to get lost in the sauce and doing things that you look back on and you're not proud of. So if I were working with them, if I were their therapist, I would really want to help make sure we're clarifying those things in sessions together. The other things, thinking about some somatic exercises or like techniques to help even out their nervous system, because again, I can imagine the social anxiety of, now I'm going to be in public spaces and everyone knows who I am, people wanting to come up and take my picture, recording me. I can imagine that is going to be overwhelming for someone who doesn't already have a sense like anxiety. So now, how am I going to work on being able to be one mind and body, calm my nervous system in moments where I feel overwhelmed? Those would be some of the things that I would hope to be able to work with them. Obviously, as a therapist, you meet your client where they are, you cover the goals that they want to. But I think these would be some questions to help them consider. Are these things that you feel are important to you, that you feel that we should be addressing in our work together? So I hope that they have good people in their corner. Yes, their families, but also someone objective who can kind of help them navigate these next steps. Other big takeaways from the season. Again, number one, before I'm making a judgment, do I have enough information? Number two, am I separating the behavior from the person? I don't know these people. Can I keep my commentary to their behavior? Am I open to feedback and understanding other perspectives? Can I have space for some nuance? The yes and, like, yes, that was disrespectful how you went about it, addressing that, and I can see the point that you were making underneath it all, right? Can I hold some nuance for that? Again, every thought that I have doesn't need to be shared. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Remembering to hold space for their humanity, treating them with some dignity. We already know as women of color, there's enough things stacked against us. We don't need this extra hate and division.
I don't know why they want to give us a hard time when times is hard.
That's gonna really be my Love Island recap. Let's move into today's soundtrack.
Love yours.
All right, y'all, we are back with another song analysis. This week we are doing Love Yours by Jermaine Cole. So the big message I take away from this is being content is not the same as becoming complacent. Or I think we oftentimes think about trying to level up. I want to chase this next goal. But while we're on the mission to reach those things, we are not actually appreciative for where we are. So in the song, he's talking about, it's always going to be a nicer car, a bigger house, a better fit, somebody who looks better than your current partner that we could keep going after. But none of that means anything if you don't even love what you already have, right? If we can't find the beauty in the struggle that he's talking about, if I were churchy, how they talk about you count it all joy, right? If we can't do those things, even if we are chasing the next best thing, we're not going to be content once we reach it.
No such thing as a life. No such thing as a life that's better than yours. No such thing, no such thing.
Soundtrack for this week is going to be J. Cole, Love Yours. Remember, I did create a playlist on Apple Music for the Couch and the Culture soundtrack. So I will make sure I get this updated and add it to the soundtrack. And that will do it for this week's episode of the Couch and the Culture. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day or evening whenever you're listening or watching this to join me on the Couch and the Culture, and I hope to see you guys back really soon. I won't be gone this long again. I'm really going to try and do better about that. So yeah, everybody stay safe, make good choices, and hopefully we'll chat soon. Bye bye, clients.